And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us on this Monday evening. Winter meetings are in full swing, but unfortunately for us, there hasn't been too many headlines. I know a lot of us were hoping to see a busier winter meetings this year. I know we all kind of look forward to it, but all we're getting so far is just more hand-wringing around Shohei Ohtani. Now, there are a few news items to get to, and we'll get to those at the top of the show. But welcome in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already to stay up to date with all the latest from the MLB or Hot Stove season. Make sure you follow us over on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. But Mark, welcome in. Just like you say there has been a little bit of chatter around Shohei Ohtani and the Blue Jays, not to mention the Atlanta Braves. Ohtani's camp seems to be taking meetings after the winter meetings, so it does not look like he will sign at the winter meetings. Do not hold your breath for him to sign. He's going to be a very deliberate in his process by the looks of it. Now, could he sign later on this week? Absolutely. Could he sign early on next week? Absolutely. But it does not look like it's going to happen at the winter meetings, and that's going to hold up the market, unfortunately. The only signings we got today, really, were the signing for Wade Miley. That deal became official, 1 year plus an option anyway, a mutual option. Total guarantee on that one, I believe, is 8.5 with incentives that could take it to 11 million. The option year anyway is for 12, so Wade Miley gets a good deal to go back to the Brewers for what will be his third stint with the Milwaukee Brewers. Eric Fedde, former Nationals prospect, kind of went over to the KBO this past season, and in one season earned their MVP honors with a 2.0 earned run average and 180 innings pitched. It seems like he has agreed to a deal with an unspecified team for around $5 million. So good on whoever ultimately got that one done, but we're all paying attention right now to the trade market since Ohtani seems to be tying up the free agent market right now. The only news we really have to report since last night, the Kelenic deal, of course, sending White, Kelenic, and Gonzalez to the Atlanta Braves for a couple arms going back to Seattle. That move was about clearing off some payroll for the Seattle Mariners. Now, there was some headlines late last night after we went off the air about what they could possibly do with that savings. John Heyman speculated that Juan Soto could be a fit. Then, of course, they turned towards the Tampa Bay Rays. Seems like they have already called Tampa Bay about Isaac Paredes for their third base spot and for Randy Rosarena. His name seems to be popping up a lot more than I thought coming into the offseason. I still don't think it's likely that he's moved. I'd still put that around a 25% chance that he ultimately is traded here. But if a team overwhelms the Tampa Bay Rays, they're a team that's very comfortable going ahead and making a move that makes them better in the long run. After all, they're going to be having kind of an up and down season with McClanahan on the IL for the entirety of next season. Franco, you never know if he's going to come back with his off-the-field issues. We'll see if he's even able to play baseball again in his career with the concerns that he has off the field. But there has been some rumors as far as what the Seattle Mariners might be up to. One other piece of news anyway from that trade, Marco Gonzalez, the starting pitcher that was traded in that deal from the Mariners to the Braves, does not look like he's going to ultimately stay there. With the high price of pitching, Braves are going to try to pivot and move him on somewhere else. They want to get somebody, a high-end starter in there rather than just a depth guy. So not a surprising move overall, but they do get their answer in left field at least. They'll have a platoon out there with Kelenic, and then Evan White, of course, can float around the infield a little bit, maybe take some time in the outfield as well. But a good depth move for the Braves overall. For the Mariners, though, this gets more money off their books. A little bit of cash goes to Atlanta in this deal, but they traded off a bunch of salary in the Eugenio Suarez deal. Now this one, they've saved roughly $30 million or so off of the salary, or off of the books anyway, for next year. 40 plus million was taken off of the books with the deal with Atlanta alone. So good on the Seattle Mariners for cleaning up their books. Their payroll right now sits around 115. They can afford to go after a 1 year commitment to a guy like Juan Soto, or if they decide to go in the free agent market to bring in guys like Blake Snell or Cody Bellinger. They have had some conversations about their unhappiness with first base, Ty France, etc. I know they have other spots in their outfield they'd like to address first, but maybe they bring in a guy like Cody Bellinger to play primarily in one of those corner outfield spots, and then maybe float to first base eventually if they ultimately decide Ty France is not the answer there. So there's a lot of avenues that the Seattle Mariners are going to. They're trying to go down right now. There has not been a whole lot of actual concrete news, though, at the winter meetings. We've only seen a few moves actually be made, and mainly those are on the managerial front. Rob Thompson getting an extension through 2025 with the Phillies. A.J. Hinch getting a long-term extension with the Detroit Tigers as well. John Mozeliak, as Sarah points out, that Mozeliak has said that they are listening on Tyler O'Neill. Now, he's been a part of trade rumors for the better part of a year plus now at this point. He's not a part of their long-term solution there in St. Louis. Maybe he can bring in a back-end starter at this point, but they need to give somebody of a higher quality up than a guy like Tyler O'Neill. But maybe a fresh start, a clean spot for Tyler O'Neill to go to would be best for his career overall. But welcome in Mark, Sarah, Jose. Mosaic and Depoto were talking tonight supposedly. Hey, I mean, we've heard about them talking in the past about sending some pitching to the Cardinals in exchange for some offense. Maybe Nolan Gorman, maybe Tyler O'Neill would be a good fit there as well. Jose, not what I was hoping for in day one of the meetings. Not much action. Could not agree with you more. Kind of disappointing, honestly. But that's kind of what we're going to have when you have so few position players on the market, and when you have two guys at the front of the market that are going to take their time in Ohtani and Yamamoto. Maybe not necessarily as much time as we saw with Machado and Harper, where it went all the way into February. But they're not going to sign, it sounds like, here at the winter meetings. Maybe not even by the end of the week, but it sounds like before Christmas they might get something done. But it does not make for a very brisk winter meeting. So maybe we'll start to get some trade talk. There was some discussions about Tyler Glasnow. There supposedly has been 5 offers submitted to the Tampa Bay Rays. Same thing for Juan Soto. 5 teams have at least submitted offers, players, etc., to the San Diego Padres to get that one done. John Heyman was the one with that information. Did not specify which teams those were. A lot of the New York beat reporters are saying the actual package that was sent to the Yankees from the Padres and what they were asking for. And the New York brass apparently is very upset with the New York media for letting that out. Andy Martino, anyway, was, I think he's from New York, John Heyman's paper, anyway, New York Daily News, anyway. It just does not look good for a New York organization who's continued to struggle over the past couple of years, now is struggling to keep their own information private, and then they're taking it out on the media as far as their unhappiness that information is getting out. So it's just not as clean of a ship as we're used to seeing from the New York Yankees, and hopefully Cashman can wrangle this thing down and get a deal done for Soto or whoever he decides to bring in, but they need to address that starting staff. They seem to value Michael King quite highly, understandably so. Really pitched well for them in the final month of the season or so, and he seems to be an answer for them either at the back end of that rotation or as a bullpen piece going forward. But they're really hesitant to go ahead and move him in a Juan Soto deal, who's only got 1 year left on his deal. The other guy they're saying no to right now is Drew Thorpe as a part of that deal, but the Padres want quantity back on top of quality. Of course, they could ask for the top guys out there, and they have. They've asked for Anthony Volpe. They've asked for Jason Dominguez. They backed off of those asks. Understandably, the Yankees said no on those. But at some point, the Yankees are going to have to budge because the asking price, like I've been saying the last couple of days, that price is going to go through the roof once Ohtani signs. So if the Yankees want to get this done, strike while the iron is hot, get in there before these other teams ultimately outbid you for him. And as good as a fit Juan Soto appears to be right now for the Yankees, they have to get this one done. I don't see another position player really filling the void that they have out there as far as a corner outfield bat, left-handed hitter, on-base percentage type of guy. Understandably, you'd like a little bit better defense and maybe a little bit better base running, but beggars can't be choosers with the struggles the Yankees have had. I mean, Juan Soto is a great player, probably one of the top 5 or 10 hitters in all of baseball, but we'll see if the Yankees are ultimately able to get it done. But remember, their bigger priority remains pitching. The Yankees and Mets are supposedly in on Yamamoto. He's not expected to sign until later on, possibly a little bit before Christmas. He's coming over to the States in a week or so, and it seems like he's got a bevy of teams lined up for him to go ahead and visit. So this process could take a minute. So we'll see what happens there. Welcome in, Bruce. Do you feel Ohtani could be signed by the Phillies and then they could put Harper at first base and trade Hoskins? Well, Hoskins is no longer on the roster. He's a free agent right now, so there's no trading Hoskins right now. Harper right now is at first base. He's been said by Dombrowski to be their first baseman, so there's no change there. So to answer your question about Ohtani possibly to the Phillies, I guess is their DH. I just don't think they have the money for it. They're already being a little bit cheap with Aaron Nola. They didn't give him necessarily the highest contract out there. Ultimately, they got him at their price, which is great for them. But they're also pinching pennies to try to fill the back end of that bullpen, whether or not they end up bringing in Josh Hader, bringing back Craig Kimbrell, among other relievers that are out there. They're looking to build up that bullpen a little bit. They're not necessarily looking at Ohtani. But Ohtani is probably the best player on the planet right now when he's healthy. Great hitter, great pitcher, and he's literally a unicorn. We have not seen this in over 100 years, and we've never seen it at this level of production. And as far as if any team should consider themselves out on Ohtani, I don't think so. I mean, he's that good of a player, but let's be realistic. Is he really going to go to a team that doesn't have the money to spend on him? I'm just not necessarily sure of that. Other teams, of course, that don't have a realistic chance of getting him would be the usual suspects. But appreciate your appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe if you haven't. We'll get into some trade talks here in just a few minutes. The Wade Miley signing once again with the Brewers is probably the only significant signing of the day. Eric Fedde could be a little bit of a surprise depending on which team he ultimately goes to. Sounds like it could be a budget signing anyway. But Wade Miley, good starter for the Brewers a couple of different times. Gives them some length in that rotation as well. Innings eater. And I would expect the Brewers to discuss the possibility of trading Corbin Burnes. I know the Brewers usually like to go for it. They never really like to go into a full rebuild or retool. They always like to stay into contention. But let's get real with the way that division is stacking up right now. You have the Cubs right now that are going to spend heavily. You have the Cincinnati Reds, who really elevated 6 minor leaguers, and all of them hit. They're going to spend on some starting pitching. Already have added to the starting pitching and to their bullpen. You have the St. Louis Cardinals have already picked up 3 starters. Their real issue last year was the inconsistencies in that starting rotation. Hopefully they've kind of bridged the gap there, and they're still looking to add yet another starter. If they do that, that's another team that jumps over you. The only team that hasn't at this point would be the Pittsburgh Pirates, and if they move on from David Bednar like we put out there last night, maybe in a year or so the Pirates would be ahead of the Brewers as well. They need to restart their clock quick. They got the extension done for Jackson Chourio today. 8 years, $82 million with a couple of club options years after that. I'm very interested to see which direction the Brewers decide to go. They have 4 young, lots of time, service time left on their contracts, center field type of players that they've brought up over the last year or so. They could pivot and move one of those guys for a starting pitcher. But Corbin Burnes, with only 1 year left on his deal on a relatively palatable salary, to say the least, there's going to be no shortage of teams that are in on him. He's seen as the least likely to move, though, because that team just does not let any rumors really get out. You remember the Josh Hader deal for years was, everybody was, saying, hey, Josh Hader needs to move. You need to get some assets for him. This is not the way the Brewers usually do things. They need to, accumulate assets. They can't just have one guy with all this value and not distribute it among the team. Well, they did. They held on to him. And then the first year, teams are stepping away and not looking at him as a trade possibility. The media has moved their cameras off of Milwaukee and are looking at other trade targets out there. Boom! That's when you get that Josh Hader trade. Now's the last chance to really trade Corbin Burnes. Aside from the trade deadline, you could get a nice package, but I think if you trade him before the season begins, teams that bring him in via trade would be able to get a compensation back if they lose him in free agency. So if, say, the Brewers like the package from the Texas Rangers, a couple of minor leaguers, or if they like the package from the Dodgers or the Orioles or any one of these other teams looking for high-end starting pitching, if they like those packages, I would suppose they jump on those right now. 1 year left of control. You never know if he's going to get injured like Woodruff did last year, where you ultimately cut him for literally nothing. That would be a terrible situation for the Brewers to be in. Adames is also in the final year of his deal. I would not be surprised if he is moved before the season, at the very least at the deadline as well. Brewers need to reinvest some of that value that they have in both of those guys back into the team in long-term serviceable contracts. So we'll see what happens out there. Do you feel the Orioles will sign a good starting pitcher, as they seem like they could be good if they improve their starting pitching? Absolutely. We talked a little bit about this last night. Dylan Cease seems to be a perfect fit for that organization. There was a couple of articles I saw out there today saying he would be a great fit on the Rangers. I know the Rangers are looking for a starting pitching. He is cost controlled, so it would fit that type of dynamic. But from what I've seen from the Rangers reporters, they aren't necessarily in on the market for a Dylan Cease. They don't necessarily view him as a front of the rotation starter, at least in their current rotation. I think the year that he just had really pushed a lot of teams away from the table. I still think he has a lot of value. I still think he has the potential to be a Cy Young type of pitcher. But when you look at the other arms that are on the trade market right now that are going to cost less than Dylan Cease, in Glasnow, in Burnes, in Bieber, you just don't necessarily have to take the risk of the loss of all those prospects and take on the risk of maybe another year of poor performance from Dylan Cease. And then you're left with just 2 pennant races with him for this year and next. And if he's poor in one of them, is it really worth that prospect capital? Remains to be seen. But to answer your question as far as the Orioles, they're my pick to win the Dylan Cease sweepstakes anyway. I wouldn't be surprised if they, ultimately add 2 starting pitchers, high-end starting pitchers like Eduardo Rodriguez as well. But keep your eyes peeled for what the Orioles do. There are rumors around the team right now, though, is that they're focusing on the relievers in that bullpen rather than that starting pitching. That part doesn't make sense to me. I understand they're going to have, was it Bautista who went down? He's going to be out for the year. I get that they have a hole back there in the bullpen, but they're supposedly talking about Josh Hader coming into Baltimore. I'm not sure that's the best use of their finances when they need starting pitching. They had a good bullpen last year. They're going to have a good bullpen again this year. Maybe they're thinking about shortening the game for those starters they already have. Would be a good move, don't get me wrong, but the better move would be to add starting pitching and give you a game 1, a game 2 starter right off the bat. Smash the like button. Thank you, Bruce. Really appreciate that. I feel you're one of the best baseball reporters on YouTube. Well, I try. I try to keep up with all the information. Do you feel Cease is good? Ooh, personal opinion on Cease. Okay. This is different than what the industry thinks of Dylan Cease. So, I've seen Dylan Cease pitch, I don't know, probably 10 times in the past year. Of course, that was during his worst season, obviously. I also look back at some of the games that he pitched the year before when he was in that Cy Young conversation, etc. And I do see the talent, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see the conviction in his pitches, and that leaves me to worry about whether or not he's really going to be able to bounce back to a Cy Young level pitcher. I see the stuff there, the stuff backed up a little bit this past year, obviously. I think he'll improve. I think he'll get back to probably a 3.5 ERA. I think he's a decent pitcher. I think he could be a good pitcher. I don't necessarily think he's a great pitcher, and I think the team who ultimately gets him is going to overpay whatever they ultimately get. Now, that's my own personal opinion. Now, the industry, of course, still views him as a top 1 or 2 starter in anybody's rotation, and that's where probably I would slot him right now, but that's a lot of risk rather than having that certainty of a Glass now with that proven performance, or Burns, or Bieber when he's healthy, or Blake Snell at the top of the rotation. Granted, he's only thrown 180 innings in 2 of the last 6 years. The other 4 years were absolutely league average at best, but the other 2 were Cy Young caliber. And when he's able to mitigate the runners on base, etc., when he's able to, locate with his stuff, Blake Snell's absolutely great when he's able to stay healthy. That's the other risk as far as free agency. You're going to have to spend those big-time dollars. You're going to lose some compensation there as well. It's just not exactly the perfect fit going into free agency, but he's the best of the starting pitchers outside of Yamamoto on the free agent market right now. Will the Mets go for Hader? I don't believe so. They're said to be interested in him, but I think they're focusing primarily on Yamamoto and looking for 2025. I think that's when they're really going to spend their free agent dollars to try to bring in some talent. They're going to have their own free agent and Pete Alonso. I think they're going to be hard in there for Juan Soto. I think there's a number of arms that are going to be traded this offseason, and guys like Glasnow and Burns, that they're going to be hard in there as well. They need multiple starters this year and for the future going forward. They have some good prospects coming in because of the trades they made this past season of Scherzer and Verlander, eating $80 million. But we shall see. Welcome back, Vinny. Welcome back, Jordan, by the way. We talked a little bit about Soto and Ohtani off the top anyway. I don't think they're going to get both of them, though. The most of the baseball community believes that they're in on both of them, but they could not possibly do both. So as far as Soto goes, I think he'd be a great fit. Left-handed hitter, balances out that lineup a little bit. Same thing goes for Ohtani. Ohtani would easily slide into that rotation, not this coming year, but the following year after that. But the commitment would be absolutely massive. I'm beginning to wonder if the Atlanta Braves are starting to gain a little bit of steam as far as another dark horse type of a team that could win the sweepstakes for him over the Dodgers. The other team that I'm finding very curious that I would say the betting odds are going up anyway, is the Los Angeles Angels. I mean, that team just did not utilize their resources well at all. I love the hire of Ron Washington, don't get me wrong. Absolutely killed it. Knocked it out of the park with him as the hire. I'm just not necessarily sure that that's still the best place for him to go as far as trying to win. But maybe that's just where he's comfortable. He really likes, to stick to his routine. Buster Olney kind of put it out there on Twitter today that that's where he really sees his best autonomy as well. He gets to do what he wants when he wants to do it. If he wants to pitch, he will pitch. If he wants to hit, he will hit. And that's just the way things have gone for the LA Angels. But no other team out there has really had a chance to prove that to Shohei Ohtani. And I'm sure all of these teams are telling Ohtani, hey, you want to come to our team, we'll let you do whatever you want. We're going to pay you all these gobs of money. We want you to be on both sides of the ball for us to be able to make as much impact as possible. But the one team that's actually gotten a chance to prove that is the Angels, and that's the point John Heyman was making on MLB Tonight today. I would say the Angels' chances have risen from like a 1% chance as kind of a thank you for your service, also ran type of a chance, all the way up to probably about 20% based on the rumors we're hearing. That's far better than what I think even Angels fans would say they were hoping for coming into this offseason, but I still think the Dodgers are the heavy favorite for Shohei to go there. If he goes back to the Angels, Ohtani will forever just be a Los Angeles, or will be a loser playing for a losing team. Ouch. I mean, they're right now the fourth best team in that division behind the Texas Rangers, the Houston Astros, the Seattle Mariners, and then you get to the LA Angels. I think Houston's probably going to take a step back here in the next year or two because of players getting to free agency, players retiring, players moving off of this roster like Brantley, like Justin Verlander eventually. But most of their top-end talent is going to be a free agent either next year or the following year after that. And then it's really a crapshoot what the Houston Astros are going to have on that roster after that. So Mariners seem to be in their next title contention window. They've got Julio Rodriguez locked up to a club-friendly deal. They've got the starting pitching all young. They could spend some money on a hitter right now like Juan Soto to be able to elevate their team a little bit. So they're just entering their next phase of contention, whereas teams like the Astros might be falling out in the next couple of years. So to kind of cycle this back to Shohei going back to Anaheim, if they do decide to, recommit to one another, maybe they're the third best team at best at that point. Maybe they're able to convince other people to come into to the Angels, but we've seen how that's worked before. They've tried to go for pitching. It doesn't work. They tried to go from hitters. It just doesn't work either. And it'd just be sad to see him end up in LA with the Angels and not be able to compete in the postseason. The two best players in all of baseball haven't been in the postseason since they've been in the league together. That's not good for the sport. I would love to have seen both of them in a postseason series and just see how they could impact a game. We see how impactful Bryce Harper, stars of his caliber, are on the biggest stage. And having Shohei and Mike Trout not be there, we're missing out on something real special. So I would personally like to see him go to a team that gives him a chance to get to a postseason, to get to a World Series, put a ring on his finger, and cement his legacy as not just the best player in all of baseball history, but a champion as well. Rumor is Jeff McNeil could be traded. I think the Mets are literally thinking about everything right now. Long-term money they're looking to get off of, so that way they can spend for whatever they decide they want to go after in the next year or two. There is not a lot of position players out there in the free agent market, so it doesn't surprise me that we're seeing some surprise names on the market anyway. I would not be, like, one of the names that's been tossed around anyway is Alex Bregman. The Astros GM says no, that's not happening, but if a team overwhelms him, he's only got 1 year left of control. That wouldn't be a completely out of nowhere type of a move with a lack of talent on the free agent market for position players if they're able to get the right deal done. Sorry, but that means he cares more about his routine and crap than winning. Well, if that's what he cares about, that's what he cares about. You can't choose what a fella cares about, Jordan. I mean, winning is winning. I think winning should matter quite a bit. I think the money will be equal wherever he decides to go. I think the Dodgers will give up every single penny. The Angels will. I think at that point, then it would come down to, hey, I just feel loyal to the Angels. I want to stay, versus, hey, I want to go to the Dodgers. And it is kind of a mercenary for hire kind of a thing if you kind of think about it in a certain light. Maybe he values his loyalty being with one team. Can't frown or can't bang on a guy for that. But I mean, we're talking about a team that could take you to a World Series for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of your career. Whereas the Angels, at best, you're pushing for a wild card. I just don't see the reason why he would go back to the Angels at this point. But it seems like their chances are kind of improving. We're seeing the numbers for the Angels improve out there in Vegas as well. So if you had them as a chance to win the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes in the beginning of the offseason, you could have made a killing. Right now, it's seeming a little bit more likely than it was, say, a month ago. But the Dodgers, I still think, are the team that ultimately gets it done. We told you guys we'd get back to the Yamamoto sweepstakes. We touched on the news that he's going to come over to the States next week anyway and kind of have his meetings with each team that he's interested in going to. Giants, Mets seem to be the two front runners right now. And, of course, a number of other teams are on the periphery. Dodgers, Yankees, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Cardinals, etc. But Yamamoto is going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball in a year or two, and he's only 25 years old, so whoever gets him is going to get to the prime of his career. They're not going to be paying for his late 30s, like a lot of free agent pitchers do. But he's going to be young enough to be able to, stay productive, stay healthy, hopefully for the length of that contract. So he should get north of 200 million and a deal this offseason. So that's kind of the news right now. Not too many deals out there being made, but hopefully over the next 12 hours or so, we start to see the trade talk pick up since Ohtani, Yamamoto are all kind of clogging up the market. Maybe Soto gets done if the Yankees if the Yankees decide to pony up to the Padres and be able to get that deal done. But they seem very far away. The team apparently is starting to use language like absolutely insane. Those types of deals, don't happen. We're talking about apples and the moon. When you get references like that, that tells you just how far away discussions are between the two teams. So it might not just be a, hey, quick phone call, now we're willing to trade this player, let's go ahead and make this deal. Sounds like they're far apart on a number of different players that could be going from one team to the other. Trent Grisham would be another piece going back to the Yankees to give them a little bit more athleticism, another left-handed bat in the outfield as well. So Ohtani is not at the winter meetings. There was a phone interview with the Toronto Blue Jays beat reporter with Ross Atkins, the GM. He isn't at the meetings either. Apparently, he was at a meeting with Shohei, or going to a meeting. He didn't say that he was going to a meeting, but it was very clear that he had bigger priorities than what was going on at the winter meetings. That's where pretty much all GMs are right now, is at the winter meeting, so it had to be something bigger than that, and the only thing out there besides that would be Soto and maybe Ohtani. Ohtani, obviously, and Soto possibly, but it sounds like that the Blue Jays rumors for Ohtani are very realistic, along with the ones for the Braves. So we'll see where he ultimately goes. Appreciate you guys joining us. Like I said, not too much news tonight. We'll check in, if there's anything breaking tonight, we'll go ahead and go back live. But as far as the update today, Wade Miley goes back to the Brewers for his third time, and then we're talking about Fedde going to an unspecified team with for $5 million. Hinch and Thompson gets their extensions done with their current teams to be their manager. A couple other players were posted. Young Ho Lee and Woo Suk were also were posted anyway by the KBO. And then Jackson Chourillo's deal, 10 years or 8 years with 2 years as an option anyway for Jackson Chourillo, $82 million guaranteed. Jordan, he's coming. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you heard about that though, Jordan, but he did still do the phone interview with the Toronto beat reporter. I'm not sure the beat reporter's name, but he did still do the scheduled phone interview with him. But at least there is still in discussions for Ohtani among other big time opportunities out there. So hopefully that excites you Blue Jays fans out there. Got quite a few of you guys over the last couple of days. Same things for Giants fans. Hopefully the Yamamoto news gives you a little bit of hope that he is going to meet with the Giants brass next week. So winter meetings off to a slow start, but that could change with a drop of a hat. As we were live last night, we got the trade for Jared Kelenic. We thought that might kick off things. It didn't, unfortunately, but at least it gave us some clarity as to what the direction is for the Mariners. They look like they're willing to spend right now, hopefully on a big-time player for a corner outfield bat, maybe a second baseman, maybe even bringing in a starting pitcher like Blake Snell, taking opportunities as they present themselves. Jerry Dipoto is always very opportunistic, and maybe he sees an opportunity in the free agent market, and so he wanted to clear off some of his payroll, and he was able to do that in 2 trades, Eugenio Suarez and the Kelenic trade. But the Braves, of course, cleared off a bunch of salary before the offseason really got underway, non-tendering a few guys. The trade for Aaron Bummer cleared off a bunch of the guys off the back end of their roster, and so now they got a couple of guys like Kelenic and White who are going to stay on the team, but Marco Gonzalez is going to be on the trade block. He will be pivoted somewhere else as a number 4, number 5 type starter somewhere. So if you're looking for some depth in your starting rotation, Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn type of pitcher, maybe you make a call to the Atlanta Braves and figure out a deal there. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Thank you, Vinny. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And if there's some breaking news late tonight, keep your alerts on. We will go live for you guys. But y'all have a great evening, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.